I never died, Dad. The sentence echoes in Walter's mind as his eyes scan the trembling paper. I never died. It's 6 in the morning on Christmas Day. The mansion is plunged into total silence, and he has just found a white envelope beneath the illuminated tree. Victoria and the stepchildren are still asleep upstairs, oblivious to the earthquake about to destroy this family. Walter grips the envelope with both hands, feeling the rough paper against his clammy skin. He reads in a low voice, but every word lands like a shot in his empty chest. I have cleaned your house for 6 months. You walk past me every day. You never recognized me. I am your daughter, Helen. The paper slips from his trembling hands and flutters to the cold marble floor like a dead leaf. No, this is impossible, he thinks, breath catching in his throat. Helen died 8 years ago in a devastating fire. He saw the sealed casket, wept over the cold wood, said his final goodbye, but the handwriting, that shaky, childish script, with the lopsided curves only she could make. Walter recognizes every stroke, every misplaced comma, exactly like the birthday cards she wrote when she was 7. His hands tremble violently as he snatches the paper back from the floor. His heart is pounding so hard he can feel it in his temples, blood pulsing wildly. How is this possible? Helen. The name escapes in a strangled, almost inaudible whisper. Walter stumbles to his feet, knocking over the coffee mug on the side table. The dark liquid seeps into the expensive rug, but he doesn't even notice. He runs across the living room, bolts through the still dark kitchen, and barrels down the back corridor, his heart about to burst from his chest. Every step is torture, his legs threatening to buckle under the weight of the impossible revelation. The door to the housekeeper's quarters is ajar, leaking a faint sliver of yellow light. Walter stops in front of it, his hand frozen on the cold doorknob. He takes 3 deep breaths, trying to control the tremor racking his entire body. He pushes the door open slowly, the creak of the hinges sounding deafening in the suffocating silence. Inside, a thin woman stands with her back to him, folding white linens with mechanical precision. She wears a full grey uniform, a cap covering all her hair, and thick gloves on her hands. Her posture is rigid, her shoulders tense, as if she has been waiting for this moment for years. Walter feels his throat tighten, words trapped somewhere between fear and hope. The smell of laundry detergent mixed with something vaguely familiar fills his nostrils. He knows this smell, but he can't place it. Helen? His voice is hoarse, heavy with a pain he didn't know existed. The woman freezes completely, her hands stopping mid-fold. She doesn't turn, doesn't respond, just halts as if the name has pierced something deep within her. The silence that follows is deafening, heavy as molten lead. Walter takes a step into the tiny room, the cold concrete floor chilling his bare feet. "Look at me," he pleads, his voice cracking mid-sentence. "Please, look at me." The woman takes a deep breath, her shoulders rising and falling slowly. Seconds pass like entire hours, each beat of Walter's heart marking the eternity of the moment. Finally, very slowly, she begins to turn. First her shoulders, then her torso, and at last her face, still shadowed by the low-pulled cap. She lifts her head slowly, revealing only her eyes at first, deep, green eyes, identical to his late wife's. Eyes Walter would recognize anywhere in the world, even clouded by years of pain and suffering. His entire world shatters in that precise instant. His legs finally give out, his knees striking the hard floor. It's her. Dear God, it's really her. "It's been a long time, Dad," Helen says, and her hoarse, weary voice, heavy with resentment, confirms the impossible. Walter can't breathe, can't think, can't do anything but stare into the eyes he thought he'd never see again. "I never died, Dad." The line from the letter resonates in his mind. And now she is here, standing before him after 8 years in the grave, alive. His daughter is alive. Helen remains in her cap and gloves, her entire body concealed by the uniform that hides all her secrets. Her green eyes fix on Walter, showing no apparent emotion, but behind them lies an ocean of accumulated pain. He tries to get up, but his legs refuse to obey his brain's commands. "This isn't possible. You died," he stammers, his voice coming out in broken fragments. The smell of disinfectant and tears fills the tiny room. "No," Helen replies with icy calm. "I survived." Walter lurches forward, reaching out a hand as if needing to touch her to believe. She immediately recoils, putting physical distance between them. The movement is instinctive, automatic, like a wounded animal avoiding further pain. Walter feels a knife twist in his chest as he realizes how much she fears him. "Helen, please, let me just see you," he begs, tears now streaming freely down his face. "You want to see?" She laughs, a bitter, joyless sound. "You've walked past me 500 times in the last 6 months, Dad. 500. You never wanted to see me before." Walter opens his mouth to protest, but she raises a gloved hand, silencing him. "I didn't know," he finally manages to shout, his voice echoing off the peeling walls. "How was I supposed to know? They told me you were dead." Helen shakes her head slowly, her eyes filling with tears she refuses to shed. "You didn't know?" Her voice rises an octave. "Or you didn't want to know, Dad? There's a difference." She begins to remove her gloves with slow, deliberate movements, revealing her fingers first. Helen's hands are covered in deep, ridged scars. The skin is puckered, reddish, and pulled unnaturally taut by failed skin grafts, old burns that tell a story of fire and unimaginable suffering. Walter feels bile rise in his throat at the sight of what was done to his daughter. "My God," he whispers, reaching out a trembling hand to touch them. She snatches her hands away, hiding them behind her back. "Don't touch me," Helen commands, her voice firm for the first time. Walter freezes, his arms still hanging in the empty air between them. Then she raises her hands to the cap and begins to remove it slowly, drawing out the moment. The hair underneath is short, patchy, and haphazardly cut. And when the cap finally drifts to the floor, revealing her full face, Walter feels the world stop. Half of Helen's face is covered in deep scars, warping her features. The skin looks melted, stretched grotesquely and painfully over the bone. Her left eye is pulled slightly shut by the tension of the seared skin. Her right cheek is a ragged mosaic of grafts that never settled properly. But her eyes are still hers, green and sorrowful, exactly as he remembers. Walter collapses to his knees again, this time sobbing uncontrollably. My God, Helen, what did they do to you?" The words come out broken by sobs. He reaches out to touch his daughter's disfigured face, desperate to prove she is real. Helen flinches away again, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You don't have that right," she says softly. "Not anymore." "Please," Walter pleads from his knees, utterly broken. "You don't have the right," Helen finally screams, and all her pent-up rage explodes at once. "You didn't look for me. You believed I was dead and moved on as if nothing ever happened. You married her 6 months after my funeral." The words spill out like venom, each syllable laced with years of abandonment and pain. "I thought, the body. They told me." Walter tries to explain, but the words sound hollow even to his own ears. "They lied," Helen interrupts, finally letting tears stream down her scarred face. "Victoria lied. She locked me in my room. She poured the kerosene. She struck the match. She left me to burn alive." Walter feels his stomach roil violently, nausea overwhelming him. No, that's not true." Helen wipes her tears on the sleeve of her grey uniform, staining the fabric. "I only survived because I jumped from the window. I fell from the 2nd story, broke 3 ribs, spent 3 weeks in a coma at a county hospital. When I finally woke up, Half my body was burned beyond recognition. Her voice is cold now, mechanical, as if reciting someone else's story. Walter hears every word as a guilty verdict. 37 surgeries, Dad, Helen continues, staring at him with those green, accusing eyes. 37 times they cut me open, trying to fix what the fire destroyed. 3 whole years living in filthy county hospitals. No one knew who I was because Victoria put someone else's body in my casket. Walter shakes his head, unable to process the sheer magnitude of the horror. His hands are trembling uncontrollably. And you... Helen's voice cracks for the first time. You never looked for me. Not once. Walter opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. I wrote letters I never sent. I dreamed every night that you would show up at the hospital door. I imagined you finding me 1,000 times. But you never came, Dad. Never. Each word is a calculated twist of the knife in his heart. So I came back, Helen says, her voice returning to that deathly chill. I came back alone. Used a fake name. Applied for the housekeeping job. In my own home. You hired me without a second glance at my face. Walter feels the tears streaming again, unable to stop them. I cleaned your office every day for 6 months. I served your coffee every morning. I changed your towels. I washed your clothes. And you never looked at me. Helen scrubs her face again, leaving damp streaks on her uniform. You know what I realized? I was always invisible to you. Before the fire, during it, and after, I never really mattered. The resignation in her voice is almost worse than the anger. Walter finally manages to get to his feet, staggering. No, that's not true. I loved you. I love you. The words come out, desperate and incoherent. Loved? Helen takes a step back. Victoria tried to kill me, Dad. She set me on fire. And you married her. You gave her my mother's place. You gave her everything that was ours. Walter reaches out his arms, pleading. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. If I had known... The desperation in his voice is palpable, suffocating. Never knew. She laughs again, that lifeless sound. Or never wanted to know. It was easier to believe the lie, easier to move on, easier to forget I ever existed. Walter shakes his head violently, unable to accept the accusation. But deep down, a small part of him knows she's right. He hadn't asked questions, he hadn't investigated, he just accepted. I left that letter because it's Christmas, Helen whispers, retrieving the cap from the floor. I thought, maybe, if you knew the truth. Her voice trails off completely. She puts the cap back on, hiding her scars once more. The gesture is definitive, final. But now I see it doesn't make a difference. Alive or dead, I was always invisible to you. She turns her back, resuming her folding of the linens with trembling hands. You can go, Dad. Your family is waiting for you upstairs for Christmas breakfast. Walter stands paralyzed for a second, processing the dismissal. Then something inside him shatters and reforms all at once. No, he says, his voice firm for the first time. I'm not leaving. Not this time, not ever again. Helen stops folding but doesn't turn around. You're right about everything, Walter continues, choking on the words. I failed you. I believed the lies because it was easier. I moved on because it was less painful. I didn't look for you because I was terrified of what I might find. But I see you now, Helen. I'm seeing you, and I am not losing you again, never again. He takes a slow step toward her. Give me a chance. Just one. Let me fix this. Please. Helen squeezes her eyes shut, clutching the linens tightly in her scarred fingers. Tears stream silently down her face, still turned toward the wall. The silence stretches. Finally, she turns slowly, her green eyes swimming. How? Helen asks, her voice small and broken. How do you fix 8 years, Dad? How do you fix this? She gestures to her disfigured face. Walter takes a deep breath, wiping his own tear-streaked face. We start by telling the truth. All of it. Right now. He glances toward the door, his jaw tight. And Victoria is going to pay for everything she did. I promise. Helen watches him in silence for a long moment, studying her father's face as if for the first time. She searches for sincerity, for truth, for anything worth believing in after so long. Walter holds her gaze, letting her see all his pain and regret. Finally, after an eternity, Helen gives a slight nod. "Okay," she whispers. "Let's tell the truth." Helen closes her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, preparing to relive the worst day of her life. Walter remains on the cold floor, waiting, his hands trembling on his knees. The heavy silence between them is broken only by the distant sound of Christmas bells outside. "You want to know what happened that night?" Helen asks, her voice trembling. "Then I'll tell you everything, Dad. Every detail you never wanted to know." 8 years ago, Helen was only 14 and had lost her biological mother just 2 years prior. Victoria had entered their lives like a savior, an elegant, attentive woman who promised to take care of the shattered family. Walter, blinded by loneliness and guilt, had married her hastily, only a year after his first wife's death. Helen never trusted her, but she was just a child. No one took her seriously. Her green eyes glittered with tears as she remembered her lost innocence. "I found out by accident," Helen continues, staring at her father. "I was looking for a notebook in your office when I found the bank statements. Victoria had been stealing money from the company for months, transferring it to offshore accounts. Millions, Dad. She was slowly draining everything, and you didn't even notice." Walter feels his stomach clench, but he doesn't interrupt. Helen deserves to be heard after so much forced silence. On that fateful night, Helen confronted Victoria in the empty dining room. "I'm going to tell my dad," the girl said, clutching the papers in her trembling hands. Victoria just smiled, that cold, calculating smile Helen would never forget. "Your father will never believe you, dear," she replied, calmly lighting a cigarette. "He loves me. You're just a painful reminder of the woman he lost." Helen felt her world shatter in that instant. "She waited for you to leave on another one of your endless business trips," Helen says, bitterness dripping from every word. "It was 10 at night. The house was empty. The staff had the night off. Victoria came up to my room with a gallon of kerosene." Walter chokes, covering his mouth with his hand. "She knocked on the door gently, just like she always did. I thought she was coming to apologize, to talk. I was such an idiot." When Helen opened the door, Victoria shoved her inside, sending the girl sprawling to the floor. "You should have kept quiet," she whispered, locking the door from the outside. Helen scrambled up, running to the door, pounding on it, screaming. But there was no one to hear, no one to save her. The smell of kerosene began to seep in from under the door, strong, sickening, deadly. "Daddy!" Helen screamed until her throat was raw. "Daddy, help me!" But you were miles away. She poured the kerosene all over the hallway floor, onto the door, up the walls, Helen recalls, tears streaming freely now. "I heard the strike of the match. I saw the orange glow under the door. And then the fire exploded." Walter sobs aloud, unable to contain his anguish. Helen continues relentlessly. "The heat was unbearable. The smoke poured in first, burning my lungs. I was coughing, choking, crawling on the floor, searching for air. The flames began to devour the door." Helen's room became an inferno in minutes. The curtains caught fire, then the bed, then the wooden furniture. The heat was melting skin. The air was searing to breathe, and her screams were muffled by the smoke. "I knew I was going to die in there," Helen says softly. "I thought about you. I wondered if you would miss me, if you would cry at my funeral, if you would finally see me." Walter buries his face in his hands, destroyed by the cruel truth. But the instinct for survival kicked in. Helen dragged herself to the window, smashing the glass with an already burning chair. "I didn't think, I just jumped," she recounts. Second story. "I landed right in the garden. I heard my bones break, felt my ribs splinter, but that pain was better than the fire, so much better." A neighbor who saw the flames called the fire department and found her in agony on the lawn. 70% of her body burned. Victoria was fast, Helen says, her voice seething with contained rage. She bribed the first responders, put an unclaimed body in the casket, falsified the documents. "When I woke up 3 weeks later in the hospital, nobody knew who I was. My identity was gone. Helen Torres was dead and buried. And you, Dad, you cried for 2 days and married my murderer 6 months later." Walter has no words. There is no excuse, no justification, only the crushing shame of having failed so completely. Before we continue this heartbreaking story, I have to ask you for something. If this story is touching your soul like it's touching mine to tell it, please hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single story that could change your perspective on family and forgiveness. And answer this in the comments. Have you ever felt invisible to someone you loved? Let's continue, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Helen wipes her tears with the back of her scarred hand and continues. "It took me 3 years to recover physically. 37 surgeries, like I said. Every single one was torture. The grafts wouldn't take, the infections were constant." Walter listens to every word as if it's his own sentencing. "Psychologically, I never recovered. I woke up screaming every night, feeling the fire on my skin. The smell of kerosene still makes me sick. To this day, I can't be near a match." When she was finally discharged, Helen was 21 and had nowhere to go. The social workers tried to help. They wanted to contact my family, but I lied. I told them I had no one. How could I explain that my stepmother had murdered me and my father had forgotten I ever existed? She found menial jobs, cleaning houses, washing dishes in diners. She survived, but she wasn't living. Each day was just a mechanical repetition of the one before. "Until one day I saw you on television," Helen says, a bitter smile playing on her lips. "An interview about your company's success. You looked so well, so happy, with Victoria beaming at your side. And I realized you really had moved on. It wasn't an act, it wasn't hidden grief. You had completely forgotten me." Walter shakes his head desperately, but Helen doesn't stop. "That's when I decided to come back. Not for revenge, just to be near you, to see if you would feel anything at all." She created a false identity using papers from an acquaintance at a shelter. "I applied for the housekeeping job here. Victoria interviewed me personally, looked right at my disfigured face, and didn't recognize me. She laughed about my appearance with the other staff members afterward." Walter squeezes his eyes shut, sickened. Helen continues. "You hired me without a second glance. You signed the paperwork, asked when I could start, and walked out. 3 minutes. That's all I was worth to you. For 6 months, Helen lived in her own home like a stranger. I cleaned your office every morning at 6. You'd come in at 7, grab the coffee I left on your desk, and work without ever seeing me. Sometimes I would stand right there 5 feet away from you and you never even looked up." Walter feels every word like a lash. "I served your dinner. I washed your clothes. I changed the sheets on your bed, and you walked past me in the hall as if I were a ghost." "Do you know what the worst part was?" Helen asks, her voice cracking. "You praised my work once. You said, 'Good job,' without looking up, and I was happy. After everything, I was happy that you had noticed me, even without knowing who I was." Walter buries his face in his hands, sobbing. Helen laughs bitterly. "Pathetic, isn't it? I was so desperate for crumbs of affection that any word at all was enough." Victoria, on the other hand, treated her like dirt. She would humiliate me in front of the other staff, tell me I was ugly, incompetent, stupid. She'd make me clean the same spot 3 times just because she could. And you heard it all and said nothing. Walter tries to protest, but Helen silences him with a look. You defended her. You said she was just a perfectionist, that I should try harder. You always took her side, Dad. Always. Helen cleaned the room that used to be hers, now transformed into Victoria's luxury walk-in closet. I found my things, which she'd kept like trophies. My burnt teddy bear, ripped photos of me. My diary, where I used to write about you. She kept it all hidden away, like souvenirs of her victory. Walter feels sick. And do you know what was written on the last page of that diary? Daddy, when are you finally going to see me? I wrote that 2 hours before she tried to kill me. There were times when Helen almost gave up. I thought about just leaving, disappearing again, letting you live your perfect life without knowing the truth. But something always held me back. Walter looks at her, waiting. I still had hope. As stupid as it was, I still thought that one day you would look at me and recognize your daughter, that some invisible connection would make you realize. Tears stream down his face, but he doesn't wipe them away. Then Christmas arrived, Helen finishes, her voice exhausted. And I decided that either you saw me now or I would leave forever. I wrote the letter on Christmas Eve, shaking, crying, pouring 8 years of pain onto the paper. I left it under the tree before I went to bed. I woke up not knowing if you'd read it, if you'd believe it, or if you'd even care. Walter finally stands, staggering, and reaches out his hands. I care. I swear to God, I care. Forgive me, Helen, please. Helen watches him in silence, torn between forgiveness and the years of accumulated rage. Walter holds out his hand to Helen for the first time in 8 years, and she hesitates for a long moment. Her scarred fingers finally touch his, and it's as if an electrical circuit closes between father and daughter. Let's end this now, Walter says, his voice heavy with a determination he hasn't felt in years. Helen nods, taking a deep breath, preparing herself for the inevitable confrontation. Together, they walk out of the tiny room and down the mansion's corridors toward the dining room. It's almost 7 on Christmas morning, and Victoria is already in the dining room, setting the table for a special breakfast. She wears an elegant red dress, expensive jewels at her throat and wrists, her French perfume filling the air. The 2 stepchildren, 16-year-old Daniel and 18-year-old Isabella, are helping their mother lay out fine china plates. No one notices Walter and Helen standing in the doorway, observing the perfect domestic scene. The contrast between this happy family and the truth about to explode is brutal. Victoria, Walter calls out, and his voice cuts through the air like a blade. She turns, smiling, but the smile freezes when she sees the housekeeper standing beside her husband, cap off, gloves off. Victoria's eyes widen slightly at the sight of the scarred face, but she recovers quickly. Walter, darling, what's going on? She asks with faux concern. Why have you brought the hired help into the dining room? Walter takes a step forward, positioning himself protectively beside Helen. Tell them who she is, Victoria. The stepchildren exchange confused glances, not understanding what's happening. Victoria laughs nervously, fiddling with the pearl necklace at her throat. What are you talking about? She's just the new housekeeper. Daniel frowns, looking at Helen with growing curiosity. No, Helen says, stepping forward, her chin held high with dignity. I am Helen Torres, daughter of Walter Torres and Laura Torres. The one you've claimed was dead for 8 years. The silence that falls over the room is absolute, suffocating. Isabella lets a plate slip from her hands and it shatters on the floor with a deafening crash. Porcelain shards scatter across the marble like fragments of the truth blowing the family apart. Daniel recoils, his eyes wide. That's crazy. Helen died in the fire. I saw the funeral pictures. I was there. Victoria struggles to maintain her composure, but her hands are trembling where they grip the edge of the table. Walter, what is this sick joke? Are you actually believing this? This disfigured imposter? Helen feels the word imposter like a slap, but she doesn't flinch. Imposter? She repeats, her voice gaining strength. She pulls off the uniform top, revealing the scars that cover her arms and part of her torso. These scars are from the third-degree burns, from the kerosene you poured in my room. Victoria turns visibly pale, taking 2 steps back. You're delirious. I never... Walter cuts her off, his voice thundering. Enough lies. Helen told me everything, how you locked her in the room, how you set the fire, how you put another body in her casket. Isabella covers her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. Mom, that can't be true. Victoria looks from her children to Walter, then to Helen. She's cornered, and she knows it. She's lying, she shrieks, her composure finally shattering. She wants to destroy our family. She wants the inheritance. But Daniel is staring intently at Helen, and something clicks in his mind. Wait, that scar on her arm. I remember an old photo of Helen as a kid. She had the same mark. Shut up! Victoria explodes, turning on her son with furious eyes. But it's too late. The truth is out. Walter steps toward her, each move deliberate and menacing. You tried to kill my daughter. You left a 14-year-old child to burn alive. You married me on her grave. Victoria laughs, a hysterical sound, the perfect wife mask disintegrating. And you never even noticed? She was dead for 8 years, and you moved on in 6 months. She was ruining everything, Victoria screams, the words tumbling out uncontrollably. She found out I was transferring the money. She was going to tell you. She was going to ruin all my plans. So I solved the problem. I eliminated the witness. The silence that follows the confession is absolute. Isabella collapses to her knees, sobbing. Daniel just leans against the wall, pale with shock. Helen closes her eyes, finally hearing the confirmation she always needed. Walter picks up his phone, his hands shaking with rage, and dials 911. The police lead Victoria away in handcuffs while she screams obscenities and threats through the mansion. Daniel and Isabella leave in silence with an aunt who came to get them, both shattered by the revelation. The mansion is finally empty, leaving just Walter and Helen in the living room, still decorated for a Christmas that never happened. The tree lights blink faintly, reflecting in their tears. The silence is no longer suffocating, but heavy with possibility. Walter sinks heavily onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. Helen remains standing, hugging herself, watching her father break down. Why didn't you scream my name that night? Walter asks, his voice muffled by his hands. Helen feels her throat tighten. I did, she answers softly. I screamed for hours until the smoke stole my voice. But you were in Hong Kong. On that business trip you couldn't postpone. Walter slowly lifts his head, his eyes red and swollen. I chose a contract over staying with you. The realization is sharp, agonizing. Helen doesn't respond. She just grips her scarred arm. Victoria knew you'd be gone. She planned it for that exact night. She waited until you were on the plane before she did anything. Walter sobs, his whole body shaking with the crushing weight of his guilt. I failed you, he says, finally meeting his daughter's eyes. Before the fire, during it, and after. You were right about everything. I made you invisible because it was easier than dealing with the memory of your mother. Hot tears stream down Helen's disfigured face. I looked too much like her, she whispers. And you couldn't look at me without hurting. Walter nods, unable to deny the cruel truth. Helen moves slowly, sitting beside him on the sofa, but keeping a careful distance. When Mom died, I was only 6 years old. I needed you more than ever, but you drowned yourself in work, in trips, in endless meetings. Walter listens to every word as a deserved conviction. When you brought Victoria home a year later, I tried to warn you. I told you she was fake, that she only wanted your money, but you wouldn't listen. I was so desperate to fill the void your mother left that I latched onto the first illusion that came along, Walter admits, his voice thick with regret. Victoria was charming, attentive, everything I thought I needed. He looks at Helen, really seeing his daughter for the first time in years. But what I really needed was right in front of me all along, and I was too blind to see it. Helen bites her lower lip, fighting a war of conflicting emotions. Walter hesitantly reaches a hand toward Helen's scarred face. "May I?" he asks, respecting her boundaries for the first time. Helen closes her eyes and gives a slight nod. His fingers touch the scars with infinite tenderness, tracing the ragged lines of seared skin. "You are still so beautiful," Walter whispers, his voice breaking, "and I am so sorry for everything." Helen finally collapses, sobbing into her father's chest. "I wrote you letters all these years," Helen confesses between sobs. "Hundreds of them. I never sent one because I was afraid you wouldn't care." Walter clutches his daughter, crying with her. "Show me. Please, show me all of them." Helen pulls back slightly, wiping her tears. "I brought them. They're in my room." She gets up, shaky, walks to the housekeeper's room, and returns with a battered, worn-out notebook. Walter opens the notebook with reverent hands. The first page is dated 8 years ago, just days after the fire. "Dear Daddy, I woke up in the hospital today and the first thing I did was look for you, but you weren't here. They said you don't even know I'm alive. Would you miss me if you knew? Helen." He reads the words aloud, his voice cracking. He turns the page. "Daddy, I had my 5th surgery today. It hurts so much. I wish you were here to hold my hand, but you never come." Page after page, Walter reads through years of pain, loneliness, and the unwavering love Helen still held for him. "Daddy, I saw you on TV today. You were smiling. It made me happy that at least you're happy, even without me. Daddy, tomorrow I'm coming home, but you won't know it's me. I'm going to clean your floors and wash your clothes just to be near you. It's pathetic, I know. But it's all I have left." When he finishes, Walter clutches the notebook to his chest. "I don't deserve you," he whispers, "but I will spend the rest of my life trying to." Helen takes her father's hand, lacing her scarred fingers through his. "I just wanted you to see me, Dad. Just once. To really see me. Not as a painful memory or an invisible housekeeper, just as Helen, your daughter." Walter squeezes her hand, looking directly into her green eyes. "I see you now, and I promise I will never look away again." They sit like that for long minutes, crying together, starting the long journey of healing. Outside, snow begins to fall softly, covering everything in a white blanket of renewal. A year has passed since the Christmas that changed everything. Walter sold the enormous mansion and bought a smaller, cozier house on a quiet street, far from the city bustle. Helen is sitting in the living room, decorating a simple Christmas tree much smaller than the old ones, but infinitely more meaningful. The scars remain, permanent reminders of her past, but she no longer hides them. Her hair is longer now, falling over her shoulders, with no cap to conceal it. Walter walks in carrying a box of ornaments, wearing a genuine smile for the first time in years. "I found that angel your mother handmade," Walter says, carefully opening the box. Helen takes the delicate ornament, her eyes filling with happy tears. "I thought this was lost in the fire." Her voice still trembles when she talks about that night, but now there is room for healing. Walter places a hand on his daughter's shoulder, a simple gesture that would have been impossible before. "Victoria had it in a storage unit. I found it when I was clearing out the mansion." Helen is in her sophomore year of college, studying psychology, fulfilling her dream of helping other victims of trauma. Every day, Walter drives her to campus before he goes to work on a reduced schedule now. He learned far too late that no contract is worth missing breakfast with his daughter. They talk about everything now. Her studies, his work, movies, memories, even her late mother, and the pain is softer now. The house is full of laughter, something that was absent for far too many years. "You know what I realized?" Helen asks, hanging a silver star on a branch. "For years, I thought I needed your validation just to exist." Walter stops unpacking ornaments, giving her his full attention. "But I exist, Dad. I always existed, whether you saw me or not." The words are mature, profound, the result of the countless therapy sessions they attend together. Walter smiles, proud of his daughter's strength. "And I realized something too," Walter replies, sitting on the sofa to face her. "I realized that being present isn't just about being in the same room. It's about looking, listening, and truly seeing the person." Helen nods, understanding completely. "I spent years in the same house as you, but I was absent. I was traveling even when I was standing still." She sits beside him, taking his hand. "But you're here now. That's what matters." Victoria's trial resulted in a 15-year sentence for attempted murder and fraud. Daniel and Isabella cut off all contact with their mother and have tried to reach out to Helen a few times. She isn't ready for that yet, but she holds no grudge. They were victims of Victoria's manipulations too. The process of forgiveness is long, and Helen is walking it at her own pace. Walter respects her every decision, having finally learned to listen instead of dictate. "I got something for you," Walter says, retrieving a wrapped box from under the tree. Helen opens it curiously and finds an empty photo album with "Our New Memories" embossed on the cover. The tears come, but this time they are tears of gratitude. "We'll fill it together," he says, "with pictures from now on. We can't change the past, but we can build the future." Helen hugs her father tightly, finally feeling that she belongs, that she is seen, that she is loved. "I have something for you too," Helen says, grabbing a large flat package leaning against the wall. Walter unwraps it and finds a canvas painted by her in one of her college art classes. It's a self-portrait, her face, scars and all, but she's smiling, unashamed, unhidden, just her. Walter holds the canvas with trembling hands. "You are the strongest person I know," he whispers, choked up. They finish decorating the tree together, placing each ornament with care, sharing fond memories of Helen's mother. They prepare a simple supper in the kitchen, working side by side, laughing at the private jokes they've developed over the past year. The table is set for two, just them, and it's perfect. Outside, the snow begins to fall again, covering the street in that white blanket that always brings the feeling of a fresh start. This time, it isn't an illusion. "For the first time in 9 years," Helen says, looking out the window, "I feel like I'm home." Walter hugs his daughter from behind, resting his chin on the top of her head. "And I finally understand what being present means. It's not about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about looking someone in the eye, holding their hand, and just being there when it hurts." Helen turns and hugs her father back. And in that embrace there is forgiveness, healing, and a love that survived the fire. That Christmas night, father and daughter eat their meal, laughing, crying, and healing together. The past can't be erased, and the scars will remain forever, but they no longer define who they are. They define who they became: stronger, more present, more grateful. And as the snow blankets the world outside, inside the small house, there is warmth, there is light, and there is a family rebuilt from the rubble. Because sometimes the greatest gift we can give doesn't come wrapped in a box. It comes in the form of presence, of a gaze that truly sees, and of a love that chooses to stay. Final message. Sometimes the people we love the most are closer than we imagine, but we only see them when we stop looking through them. No career, no new relationship, and no excuse is worth being absent from the people who truly matter. Because when you finally open your eyes, it might be too late. Or if you are lucky, it might be the last chance to rebuild what should never have been broken. Presence isn't just being in the same space. Presence is seeing, hearing, touching, and truly being there when someone needs you. How many people do you make invisible every day? How many times do you walk past someone without really seeing them? Your children, your parents, your spouse, your friends, they might all be screaming in silence, waiting for you to stop, look, and see. Don't wait for a letter under the Christmas tree to wake you up. Don't wait for an accident, a tragedy, or an irreparable loss to realize who was by your side all along. Because some silences are just disguised cries for help. Walter and Helen's story reminds us that second chances are rare gifts, not guarantees. Not everyone is lucky enough to find what they've lost. But if you still have time, if the people you love are still breathing beside you, don't waste another second. Put down the phone, cancel the meeting, sit at the table, look them in the eye, ask how their day was, and actually listen to the answer. Those are the things that matter when everything else fades away. Victoria represents everything that can destroy a family: lies, manipulation, greed. But Walter represents something even more dangerous: absence disguised as presence. He was there, but he wasn't there. He looked, but he didn't see. He heard, but he didn't listen. And that is the kind of silent abandonment that cuts the deepest, because it comes from the person who is supposed to protect you. Don't be a Walter. Be present before it's too late. If this story touched your heart as it touched mine to tell it, please hit that like button so more people can receive this message that could save families. Write in the comments, have you ever failed to see someone important because you were too distracted? Or have you ever felt invisible to the person you loved most? Your story might help someone else going through the same thing. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us what truly matters in life. And if you want to support this work of creating stories that transform, click the thanks button right below this video. Every gesture counts, and every share spreads this message of love and presence to more hearts. Don't underestimate the power of a well-told story. It might be the push someone needs to call their distant father, hug their neglected child, or just truly look at the person right next to them. Remember, scars don't define who we are. They define who we became after the fire, and all of us carry invisible scars, waiting for someone with the courage to see them. Be that person. Look past the surface. Look for the invisible, because you never know, the person serving your coffee, cleaning your floor, the one you pass by every single day, might have been waiting years for someone to finally, truly see them. Don't let it be too late. Until the next story that changes our perspective on what truly matters, may this Christmas and all the ones to come be about real presence, true love, and eyes that finally see. Merry Christmas. May you never be invisible to those you love, and may you never make anyone invisible to you, because in the end, it's not the presents under the tree we remember. It's the hugs, the eye contact, the presence. It's the people who chose to stay and who chose to see.